President Trump has been in office for less than 100 days, but his administration has already unleashed numerous assaults on our food security in Hawaii and in rural communities nationwide. The cuts to SNAP and work requirements proposed and imposed by this administration and congressional Republicans will result in families losing food off their tables, and too many children will go hungry. When it comes to rural America, here are the facts. 1.7 million rural Americans live in counties where there aren't enough jobs for people who need them. 63% of rural counties have fewer jobs than before the Great Recession. In addition to this, challenges like lack of affordable housing, childcare, and access to transportation all make it harder for rural Americans to find and sustain employment. Dr. Schazenbach, you've stated that expanding work requirements would cause harm. Would you specifically, briefly discuss how these proposals would specifically impact rural communities?
Yeah, so in general, rural communities rely a little bit more on SNAP, in large part because of the reasons that you mentioned, declining, work base, et cetera. But SNAP works really effectively in those areas, in part because it, works through normal channels of trade. And so, you can go to the grocery store with your benefits, with your other money together. It helps prop up the rural economies. It helps, again, back to that multiplier effect, when you're spending money in the rural areas, that keeps more jobs in the area as well. SNAP is very important for rural households.
Thank you. So to lift up our rural residents and our rural economy, and to put it bluntly, for many rural Americans, Republicans' efforts to raise work requirements is essentially sentencing them to starvation because of where they happen to live. Across the country, millions of Americans are frustrated with the high cost of living, especially with the price of their groceries. Rural communities are absolutely no exception. The difference is that SNAP participation rates are higher, as you mentioned, in rural areas. The fact that the places producing the food that we consume as a nation experience even higher rates of food insecurity is not just a cruel irony. It is a fundamental inequity in our country's food system, one that SNAP helps to address, both by putting food on their tables and by supporting farmers and rural economies. Yet rolling back the 2021 Thrifty Food Plan update means SNAP benefits would fail to cover the cost of meals in every county across the country, not even close to supplemental, especially in rural communities. According to the Urban Institute, maximum SNAP benefits for a rural resident in Leelanau County in Michigan would be almost $3 short of the average cost of a modestly priced meal of $5.19. That's a shocking 133% gap, the second highest for any county in the country if Republicans roll back the 2021 TFP update. Tito, Blaine, Camas, and Custer counties in Idaho, Lincoln and Teton counties in Wyoming, and Nevada and Sierra counties in California would all see over 110% gap between SNAP benefits and the cost of a moderately priced meal in those areas. Pierce County, Wisconsin would see a 91% gap, and in Dodge County, Minnesota, an 87% gap. The list goes on, but the bottom line is this: rural communities will not survive these SNAP cuts. Rural Americans will starve. It's worse if you account for the fact that every SNAP dollar spent in a rural area in this country generates $1.79 in local economic activity. USDA's own analysis highlighted that an additional $1 billion in SNAP spending raised GDP by $1.54 billion, created over 13,000 jobs, and generated over $32 million in farm revenue. Feeding people feeds our economy, and it supports our farmers, ranchers, and producers. If we let Republicans cut SNAP, we're letting them take billions of dollars away from these rural communities. Less market demand means less farm revenue, resulting in less jobs at the end of the day. Dr. Schazenbach, what will happen to rural communities and towns across our country and every one of our districts here if people can't find jobs where they live, and due to cost and scarcity, they can't afford to feed themselves and their families?
Yeah, so it will make people worse off, and it will make the economy worse off, which then has a spiral effect. I do want to say we're not going to let people starve. The charitable food sector, is already stretched very thin, but we are still the United States of America. We're not going to let people starve. But
the charitable food sector can only go so much.
That's
Clearly,
correct.
This is where we need to supplement and make sure people do not starve. Let's be clear, in my district, people will leave these communities. We will all see an exodus of our constituents if they cannot afford to work and to feed their families. Thank you, Dr. Scharzenbart. I yield back.